We're not going to say welcome. What are we going to say? Hi, Amanda.
Hello, Teddy. How are you on this lovely wintry morning?
I hate everything about winter and I want to move to someplace warm. I think the holidays are dumb. How about yourself?
I can understand not liking cold, but the holidays, come on.
Obviously, the cold is the
Right.
biggest factor, but usually everybody's sick. There's just a lot
A
of
lot of
sickness
people,
going
there
around.
is a plague going around, I hear.
I don't like buying presents. I'm a major Grinch. I've been called
Oh.
that many times, and I think it's a very accurate statement.
I'm the opposite.
Really.
I love getting presents for people.
Why does this not surprise me at all?
I know.
Yeah.
But my problem is, while I'm getting presents for other people, I usually will get some for myself. Like,
Also
oh,
not
one
surprising.
for you, one for me, one for you, one for me.
Self-care is important.
Self-care.
Treat yourself.
Yes, that's what I'm going to call it.
My kid doesn't need anything. He's
Right.
got everything he needs.
Right.
He's got pretty much everything he wants.
Right.
But yet we're still forced by general capitalistic pressure to just
Right.
like buy more things,
True.
which I think is bananas. It's not my job to prop up the entire retail industry. That's their problem to figure out.
For a while, I was very burnt out on the whole thing because I did work in retail. For 6 years, I worked at a department store that is no longer with us. Strawbridge's, great department store. But it was brutal. The holidays were brutal, the hours and everything. So,
I worked in retail for 1 year in the mall, and I never want to hear another Christmas song ever again as a result.
yeah, that's true.
It's
They
the same
do-
5 songs on infinite
Right.
repeat, just by different artists, right? So it's like there's only so many variations of Oh Holy Night and Silent Night and
True.
all that stuff. The Little Drummer Boy, if I never have to hear that song again.
Oh man, that's like one of my favorites. I love the Tori Amos version of that. Bet you didn't even know there was a Tori Amos version of that.
You know, I probably did, and I just tuned it out.
But hey, let's talk about our next movie in the series. I love talking about movies that shaped our views of love and relationships, or movies that are just relevant to the whole topic of dating and love. And
Yeah. To break up winter, we're going to talk about the 500 Days of Summer,
oh, that was clever.
which it's false advertising because most of the movie does not take place during summer. So
Right. No,
So,
Summer is the name of the female lead played by Zooey Deschanel.
broad strokes of the movie, in case anyone hasn't seen it, which if you haven't, why are you listening? Go watch it.
Right. Watch it immediately. It is definitely in my top 10 favorite movies. I love it.
The basic idea is that this guy who is kind of a romantic, played by Joseph Gordon-Levitt, I think his
Love
name
him.
is Tom in the movie. He meets a girl named Summer who is kind of cynical and doesn't really believe that love is real. And they sort of have a friendship that turns into a romance, but it's always kind of a romance. It's like a complicated situationship, I guess. And
is.
he wants to turn it into something serious, and she does not. And spoiler alert, at the end of the movie, she basically leaves him hanging and ends up getting engaged very quickly and says that everything he ever said about love was true. It just wasn't true for him. And he ends up sad and alone for a month or two and then finds somebody named Autumn, which is kind of a funny way to transition.
It is. It is. So I love this movie on so many different levels. First off, the references to the Smiths and to my favorite Beatle, Ringo, because also her favorite Beatle. And I love the production design of it. I love the color palette of it. It contains my favorite scene in any movie of all time, which is the expectations versus reality split screen
Yeah.
scene. It is so brilliantly done. And I also show it in my film class in our like fate versus free will unit, because at the heart of this whole thing, the deep question is there one person out there for you? Do you believe in fate? Do you believe that things are meant to be, or is it just random? Because Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character, Tom, believes in fate, believes, and at least in the beginning, that there's one person out there for him that he's going to spend his life with, and serendipitous things are going to happen to make them meet. Whereas Summer thinks everything's random, things aren't going to work out, relationships are messy, and people's feelings get hurt. She's not into the whole fate, soulmate idea. And she thinks, you know, at least at this point, they're young, they're living in, I guess it's LA, and just have a good time. very Breakfast at Tiffany's, very Holly Golightly. She's very insistent that I don't want to belong to anyone. I don't want to be called anyone's girlfriend. I don't want to be attached to anyone. So I have a bunch of notes. So full disclosure, I know I always say that I've seen movies like a billion times. I really, truly have seen this movie so many times because I usually show it multiple times a year. I watched it a lot on my own. I actually saw it in the theater. So I know this movie super well, and I love it. But I did take notes from watching it from the lens of preparing for this podcast.
Well, I should hope so. I mean, I always take notes when we do these things, but
yeah.
The interesting thing about this movie, just again, talking about it as a whole, it's very postmodern. So there's a lot of references to other movies. It's very stylized. Whenever Tom's character is feeling happy, like for instance, the night after they first sleep together, everybody is color coordinated and wearing bright blues, and they're dancing around in like a music video.
Hall & Oates.
Yeah.
Making my dreams come true. And he sees Han Solo in his reflection, which I love. That's one of my favorite little things.
But then when he's sad, when they break up, everybody's wearing gray.
Yeah.
It's cloudy outside. He looks disheveled. They did a great job with the production design. It's in your face. It reminded me of that show, Jane the Virgin. The first season, they really did that same kind of thing where it was like they were not subtle about the art direction. A lot of movies tend to do that in a more restrained way. This was very like in your face and kind of, hey, look at our art design, which is cool. It sort of set the template for, I think, a lot of indie movies in a certain time range of what, like 2005 to 2015 probably.
One thing that's really important to note about this movie is not sequential. So they will show a title card before every scene that has what day it is in the 500 days. So it goes back and forth everywhere from the very beginning when they met to getting involved in this little situationship to the breakup and then to afterward, the aftermath of it. So it's all out of order. And I think it's done pretty well where it's not super confusing. And what's really cool is they loop back around. Like in the very beginning, they have this breakup scene where they're having pancakes. And then way later in the movie, she's upset and he says, oh, I have a great idea. Let's go get pancakes. I like that. Very hard to pull off. Quentin Tarantino really started that whole trend of out of order movies, and some of them fail miserably. They're just too confusing. But this one, I think, because you do have the days there, and of course you can go online and people have already put them in order, so you can read the timeline, which is kind of cool. So if you like little gimmicks like that, it's good.
Shows have tried that too, right? Westworld season 1 tried that to somewhat limited effect, but I think the most egregious example was The Witcher season 1. I don't know if you watched that, but
no, I didn't.
They really tried the out of order thing and it was a bomb. It did not make any sense at all.
Really hard.
They did not put the work in to make it make sense. And it was supposed to be this like big reveal that like a character is in a different time than you thought they were, and it didn't work at all. 500 Days of Summer, I think, does it very successfully. I will say that it adds kind of tension, right? Because you're like, well, wait, there's like a little bit of like, what's going on? Like, why is this happening? But they, like you said, they pay it off every time. The confusion is temporary and it is rewarded if you stick with it.
One thing I noticed also that I think is really cool, just going along with the timeline thing, is I love that they use Millie's wedding as kind of a timestamp, right? Because they have like her engagement party and then traveling to her wedding and then the wedding itself. So it's like one of those little clues with the passage of time.
Yeah.
And Millie's kind of in the background.
We never even meet Millie. We just see her on camera.
Yeah, I mean, we see her and we don't really get much from Millie. She seems like a really nice lady.
I do think right from the beginning of the movie, going back to the art direction, I was a little uncomfortable with how much they look like each other. Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Zooey Deschanel, both skinny, dark hair, pale.
Yeah.
They dress very hipster.
Right.
You know, he's wearing like very skinny suits all the time. She's wearing 1950s throwback clothing because I think that's just how Zooey Deschanel dresses. And they were just like, yeah, I'd go with that. I don't know. It kind of reminded me of like Neo and Trinity in The Matrix, where they're two sides of the same coin. You know, they dress both in leather and have dark hair and are pale. So it's just like, well, that's a little weird. But they start off talking about Summer's body in a weird kind of way that I think...
Yeah, some things did not age well with this, even though it was, I think, 2007. So it's it's not like decades ago. It's not like the glaring problems we saw in like 80s movies, right? And it's especially relevant with his friends. His friends are very immature, and the way they talk about women and stuff and make gay jokes and things like that, it's more noticeable now because we're so conditioned to be kind of more woke and like, ooh, that's, you know, but I did notice that there's that part that didn't age well, talking about, exactly, how much she weighs, her height, and
her foot size.
And her foot
which
size.
Is weird.
And maybe you can address this, but don't you think that's very prevalent in movies where a man is trying to right a woman? Like, would a woman say, this is Summer and her measurements are, you know, pretty much.
Yeah, that's what's so interesting to me is that it's kind of a prolonged scene where they show her riding a bike and they're like, in many ways, Summer's just your average girl. She's 124 pounds or whatever. She's 5'5" or something. But she has a larger than average foot size. Ha ha ha. I'm like, okay, weirdo.
Yeah.
And they show a bunch of interactions where her entire life she's turned heads. And when she rents apartments, she gets them cheaper than everyone else. When she goes and works at an ice cream shop, guys line up out the door to try to get her attention. The summer effect. Right, the summer effect. That seems accurate. So 30 Rock famously talked about this, about being in the bubble. John Hamm's character was like so stupidly attractive that everywhere he went, people just handed him free stuff.
Yeah.
And Tina Fey's character was like, that's not how real life works. You have been treated that way because you're incomparably handsome. And so, yeah, I mean, it makes sense, but it also just like, I think the talking about her foot size was a really jarring step out of that. Like, okay, what does that have to do with anything?
Yeah, it's really strange, but maybe that's just part of the combination that makes her so appealing. I don't know.
To foot fetishists?
I don't know. But, you know, it's funny because what you were saying about how attractive people get unfair treatment, he and his friend addressed that at one point in the movie when he says, you know, why are pretty girls always like such bitches or whatever? And his friend says, you know, oh, years of reinforcement. That society has reinforced this, let them be like that.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
It was also weird to see that guy, what is his name? Jeffrey Arend, I think.
I love him.
I only know him from, I think, Super Troopers.
And Garden State. He's in Garden State.
Oh,
he's like the guy they went to high school with who's like trying to get him into a MLM or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, he's goofy in the movie, but he's at least plausible. The image I have in my head is him from Super Troopers where he's like, these snozberries taste like snozberries.
Yeah, he's usually very weird, but strangely, he's married to Christina Hendricks, right?
Not anymore.
Oh, not anymore.
He was a long time ago.
Because that was a pairing that was kind of odd.
Definitely punching above his weight on that one.
Hey, you know, maybe he has a great personality.
Funny guys get girls that are probably not in their same, not to be shallow about it, right? There's not weight classes in dating. It's just sort of, I don't know, a funny thing to say, I guess.
Yeah, but and also going along with the friends, striking to me as well that anytime a woman is, and this happens in the dating world on apps and everything, where guys lash out after a girl rejects them and they start calling her all these names, when they perceive that Summer is rejecting Tom or that she's not interested, she hasn't done anything horrible. It's just, okay, she's not taking the bait on picking up my cues that I like her or whatever. They actually call her a skank, a bitch, all these things, and that is a problem.
It's like you said, they are very immature. If I had one complaint about the movie, well, I probably have a few, but one of them was that I think the friends are a little underbaked. I think in a modern movie, the friends would have more of an arc or would have more of a role to play, but here they literally just exist to be his sounding board. They have no agendas of their own. They have no interests outside of just asking Tom, like, how are you? What's going on with Summer?
Right.
And I think they're just sort of reflective of like that juvenile male-centric view of, well, if she doesn't like you, she must be a terrible person.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, is like she does like him. She just doesn't like him enough to be his wife. Early in the movie, they show off that Tom is a kid who grew up watching these romantic movies and is colored by that experience, and so they really foreshadowed our podcast. Great job, guys.
If you see my very loud rustly paper here, that was my very first note. I said Tom's view of love was influenced by pop culture, and that ties into what we're doing here.
Yeah. So Summer did nothing really wrong. Like, there's a few things that she could have done better.
Yeah.
She could have been a little bit more understanding of the fact that she can see that Tom is falling head over heels for her.
Right.
And she sort of just is brushing that off, right? She could say, hey, I think I see you're going head over heels and I'm not there. Let's stop doing this if this is going to be a problem for you or whatever. There's different ways she could have handled it. But then there wouldn't be a movie.
Right. But he also, she says, is that okay? okay. I'm not looking for anything serious. Most people freak out about it. And he's like, oh, not me. I'm different.
Yeah.
And she's like, are you sure you're okay with this? And he's like, yeah. And Joseph Gordon-Levitt did a great job because it's a proven scientific fact. When people are lying, their voice goes up a little bit, And he's like, yeah, I'm fine with it. It's fine. I have some thoughts. I can go on a whole summer rant. But before that, just getting back to the name calling and everything. She's a bitch. She's a skank. She's whatever. The more I was thinking about it, women default to that a lot too.
100%.
I'm embarrassed to say when women don't like another woman, the first thing they say is, oh, what a whore. What a bitch. I mean, I'm guilty of it myself because it's just like the easy thing. And going back to Tina Fey, by the way, Tina Fey has the same alma mater as I do. She went to Upper Darby High School, as did I.
Nice.
Yeah. But in Mean Girls, she says we have to stop calling each other, bitches and whores because it just makes it okay for guys to call us bitches and whores, So I think it was just like defaulting to that all the time was just something I feel like it's not a major aspect of the movie, but it's definitely something that gives you pause and makes you think, where are we as a society? Have we really come that far if that's just the default thing when you don't like something that a woman's saying? Whereas if a guy, and look, I'm not even like rah women's lib type of person, but I have to say, guys get away with a lot more behavior without being called names, right? To me, that's my interpretation. But when a guy's being, you might be like, oh, what a dick. But like, it's not with the same malicious undertone.
I guess the way I see it is like there is a herd protection mentality. So when a member of a cow herd or whatever is being attacked, a lot of the other cows will circle around them and try to form a protective barrier against the predator.
Right.
And it's kind of the same thing with friend conversations where in a lot of cases, the person might be saying, hey, this guy didn't want to date me or whatever. And then the other friends will circle around and be like, oh yeah, what an asshole. I can't believe he would do that to you. Even though the guy might not have done anything wrong. It's just like, we are protecting you, dumping on this guy because we know that's what you want to hear right now. And we know that's how we will help you process it, is like turning him into a villain, even if he really technically wasn't. And so I think that's what the best friends are doing for Tom. You mentioned in the last episode, this movie is kind of a role reversal, where I think in many movies, Tom would be the one who is disaffected and doesn't really want a relationship. And Summer would be I really want just to get married. Here, the roles are reversed. And I think the best friends are just kind of being like, yeah, what a jerk. Speaking of best friends, there is also a trope in this movie that drives me absolutely crazy.
Oh, let's hear it.
The precocious child syndrome.
So Chloe Grace Moretz or whatever, yeah.
Chloe Grace Moretz plays Tom's sister, and the opening scene is her riding a bike furiously through the night in the city, showing up at his house after 10 p.m.
Right.
The friends are trying to counsel him through a meltdown over Summer. And they're like, we didn't know who else to call. And she's like, you did the right thing. You called me. And she talks him through it with the wisdom of someone who's probably 30 to 40 years old. And yet she's like 10.
I hate kids. Now, I mean, now I think of her as like an adult, but she is a little bit annoying. My sister, I don't think, likes this movie. And one of the biggest reasons is because of that whole thing.
It's a weak point in this movie for sure. You could have had that character be 10 years older and it makes sense. There's no reason that she has to be a literal child who is on a peewee soccer team and is giving him love advice.
Right.
There's just no reason for it.
Right. And then at one point she says, don't be a pussy. And it's supposed to be like, oh, how funny. A kid saying, don't be a pussy.
Right. It was meant to be cute. And it just, in my mind, it pulls you out of the narrative entirely because it's like, well, that does not happen. If you've ever tried to talk to a 10-year-old about anything, they're not going to give you, any sage advice whatsoever. They're going to talk about Minecraft or they're going to talk about their friends in school. Like, they're never going to say anything that is going to be applicable to your love life.
Yeah, agreed.
We talked about how Tom, they establish his character as being someone who grew up watching movies and developing this romantic view of relationships. And then as sort of the counterpoint to that, they show Summer being someone who they both went through their parents' divorce.
Yes.
And then they say that she loves her hair so much and doesn't feel anything cutting it off. Which is weird. And that's something that she remarks on as being like, I'm different, I guess. And I just was like, wait, is this clinical depression? Is that what they're setting up? She feels nothing when she takes away the thing that she loves most in life. I wasn't sure what they're saying there. Just sort of establishing her as being sort of a jaded and
trauma. I think that's also trauma. She's proud of the fact that she can put a wall up and be done with something. Again, kind of foreshadowing what was going to happen here.
Yeah.
With Tom. I noticed that as well.
It made sense as a character building moment, but it was also just like, wait a minute, what is that in a larger sense saying? But yeah, you're right. It was a great setup for what's going to happen with her and Tom, where she's going to crush him.
Yeah. So I have a brilliant segue.
Okay, please.
Into all of the dating app stuff that we usually talk about as well.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think this is pretty brilliant.
Well,
okay.
All the setup, nothing could live up to this. Just say it.
I'm just being my silly self. But anywho, so we were talking about how Tom's view of love was influenced by pop culture. And I think you get the idea. I certainly did. And I got into relationships because of this factor. But they were not good relationships. We weren't very compatible on a lot of levels. If you've ever seen the movie or read the book High Fidelity, same thing. He says, oh, what you like is more important than what you're like. And Tom thinks that because they like, and the precocious sister even says, you think just because you like all the same bizarro things, this is your soulmate? And this whole idea of, well, they like going to the same places. They like the same bands. Oh my God, we're so compatible. We can have a conversation about banana fish. And in his mind, that makes her his soulmate because she likes these things. And made me think about the dating apps, how that's a criticism, all of the experts that I follow, they say that's a major problem with the apps because they ask you to just say things that you're into.
Yeah.
I like hiking. I like wine. That doesn't give you any indication that you can have a lasting relationship with this person. And I think Tom is the person that if he were on the dating app and so they would probably match, right? Because they clearly are attracted to each other and they like the same weird things. I mean, they wouldn't, I guess if he wanted a relationship on the app and she said she didn't, maybe they wouldn't be compatible in that way. But this idea, and maybe you can speak to this from your point of view, but in my mind, I always thought that was, at least when I was younger, oh my gosh, we like all these same things. I wasn't thinking about core values and compatibility on so many like deeper levels, right? But it's just the superficial things. And so in his mind, he's trying to sell himself the idea that this is a deep soulmate connection when really it's actually a very superficial connection. And toward the end, the only time I really do like the little sister is when she says, I know you thought that this was your person, that this was your soulmate, but I don't. And if you look back, I think, you should take a look again. Like really look at it for real, for what it really was. I think that was the wisest thing she said.
I want to reiterate, the things that she's saying is not the problem, right? The things that she's saying are good advice. It's just that would never come from a 10-year-old. Mm-hmm. That advice would come from someone who's 30, not 10.
Right. True.
So they could have easily made that sister character triple her age, and the movie would still work great. It was just a cutesy attempt to be like, wouldn't it be funny if this 10-year-old was like way ahead of her years? And it's like, it's just jarring. So anyway, I agree with you 100%. There's two things that you pointed out for me. There's sort of parallel tracks. One is that the dating apps over the years have started out with much more depth and have sort of been winnowed down or funneled down into now an extremely slim pickings experience. So when they first started in the early 2000s or whatever it was, you would get paragraphs of text about me. What am I into? What are my dislikes? What are my likes? All this kind of stuff. There was so much information on a profile compared to what there is now, which is literally just prompts. So they don't even give you the opportunity to say what you want anymore. Now you have a picture and maybe a caption. That's it. For Hinge.
Right.
For Tinder, I don't even think they do that. I haven't used Tinder in a while. But like the experience has been compressed from getting a ton of information that this person wrote about themselves to now just a picture and a caption. So yeah, shockingly, the experience is now much less enjoyable because they've taken out a lot of the substance. In another aspect of what you were saying, over the time that you age, your dating experience changes, right? So in high school, you're like, oh, this person likes the Smiths. We must be soulmates.
Right.
And then in college, maybe it's similar where it's our goals are aligned. He wants to live in New York. I want to live in New York. And then maybe into your 20s, that we both want to have kids, we both want to live in the suburbs, or he's really good with kids. The factors change as you age. And so now that we are in our 40s, it's a very different experience. I think we've mentioned this before, where it's like you have kids in a different school district than my kid is. We're never going to be able to live together. It's going to have to be a very different experience than when we were 20. There's a lot of things that you now at this age are no longer willing to put up with because you're too old and experienced. And there's a lot of things that you will just overlook because you're like, whatever, you know, we don't like the same music, but who cares? Like, go see a concert with your friends and that'll scratch that itch. We can just be people who cook and watch movies together or go to brunch or whatever the thing is that you like doing with this person. I think there's kind of a give and take of just, we understand now that I don't need to be your everything. And I think in earlier decades of our lives, we think this person has to be my best friend. They have to be my lover. They have to be my financial partner. All of the categories have to be hit. Where now I think at this age, you kind of make more compromises and say, well, 5 out of 10 ain't bad.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of likes and dislikes, one of my favorite things about the movie is when all those things he lists in the beginning that he loves about her, like her haircut and her birthmark and everything, that later they become all the things that he hates about her, and he spins them in a much more negative way. And it's just kind of funny because it just shows how much you can be influenced by your feelings.
I love that comparison too, and I think for me it is sort of representative of the chemicals that happen as the result of a relationship, right? When you're in the beginning of a relationship, your mind is flooded with whatever it is, dopamine and serotonin and all that good, happy stuff. And you're just like, wow, everything about this person is perfect and they can do no wrong. And then when you break up or they hurt your feelings, suddenly all the negative emotions and chemicals come in and you're just like, everything they do is terrible and they're a piece of garbage and why did I ever date them? And so, yeah, 100%. It's a very accurate way of the way the relationship evolves over time. I do think that a lot of the movie was very realistic and in somewhat of an uncomfortable way for me, at least, because it was sort of reflective of things that have happened in my life. So I felt a little bit triggered because early in the movie, they have that breakup argument and it is very one-sided where she's just like, I don't think we should see each other anymore. We've been arguing for months. And Tom is like, what? No, we haven't. We're not arguing. And that in itself turns into an argument. That literally is how my last breakup went.
Oh, wow.
So
tell us about that.
I was just, well, I mean, there's not much to say other than just that she was a person who was very argumentative and enjoyed argument in all aspects of her life. So she liked picking at people and triggering them to get a rise out of them. I can't stand that kind of thing and I'm extremely sensitive. So it was an incompatibility, and just I kept pointing out how, especially when we traveled, that would kind of really put things into sharp relief. We'd be going to places like Greece or whatever where we should be endlessly happy because we're in the most happy or romantic places or whatever that there are, and yet we're bickering constantly about what we're going to do and our times and getting to the plane on time or getting to the boat. And there wasn't a lot of happiness in places and times that should be happy. And so it was kind of just very realistic in that there's one person who looks at that and says, like, I don't want to argue with the person that I'm supposed to love. And the other person is like, what? We're not arguing. This isn't arguing.
Yeah.
There's just not an agreement on reality.
Right. And I like that they do that little montage of shots, you know, them holding hands. And then at one point she brushes his hand away the next time they're at IKEA, right? Or when he's showing her the Ringo album and you think it's cute at first, and then, like his sister said, you look back and actually you could see very clearly she was not happy.
Yeah.
She's crying at the graduate for no reason and things like that. And you can go through a relationship and each person has a completely different reality of what happened.
Yeah.
Which is scary in a way.
The meditation guru, John Kabat-Zinn, had this whole talk where he said that no matter how long you're with someone, you'll never know that person. You'll think you know them. Mm-hmm. And you one day will wake up and they're leaving you and you think that that's the first symptom. It's like the heart attack that comes with no warning.
Right.
But in reality, there's been this long list of things that have led to that moment that you've ignored. Because it's the same thing that you do with a heart attack, right? You ate the fried food, you drank too much alcohol, you worked too much and you were stressed out. And you just thought, I'll deal with it later, or I won't deal with it at all because I'm invincible. And we do that with relationships too, where we think we ignore those warning signs and then we're surprised when the heart attack hits or the breakup happens because we papered over the things that we should have done something about. So
Yeah.
I thought the movie does an incredible job of pointing that out. The little things that are cracks in the facade. Her withering look when he shows her the album of Ringo Starr and she's like, ugh, okay. Clearly this guy doesn't get it. And the IKEA scenes are another great example of that, which, I mean, good grief, product placement. But I can't remember which scene they show first, but I think they show them fighting at IKEA first.
Yes.
And then later in the movie, they show them being happy. And it was another example of Tom's juvenile behavior. When they're happy, they're running around and pretending that they live in IKEA. Oh, our kitchen sink broke, but we have another kitchen. And they're like rolling around on the bed and there's a family watching. And it's just like, if I saw those people in IKEA, I would want to punch them in the face. This is not the place. Get a room. But I thought it was such a great example where Tom is trying to be juvenile and is a little puppy pawing at her leg and she can't play right now. And she's just like, God, will you stop? We did that already. Like, it's over. It's not...
Yeah. It's to me almost like the end of an M. Night Shyamalan movie, right? With all the flashbacks of like, oh, it was so obvious this whole time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. So let's talk about now all the reasons why Summer is an awful person.
She's not an awful person.
It's difficult because, you know, I love Zooey Deschanel. She is one of my favorite actresses. I love her style. I love her little singing. I love everything about her. But here's the thing. I mean, is she the worst person and intentionally malicious? No, maybe not. However, part of me feels like she knew what she was doing. And there's several things. Yes, Tom said, okay, I'm fine with being just casual or whatever. But like he says when when they have that big fight, he's like, this is not how friends, because she's like, well, we're just friends. And he's like, friends my ass. Like, this is not what friends do. Showering together, shower sex and, going to IKEA together and all these things. So she's going through the motions of relationship thing. And this is why situationships are so confusing and really devastating. I mean, I was personally affected by very similar situations where you're doing all of the things a couple would do. You're acting like you are in a relationship, but one of the people is not willing to say for sure. And it is like a mindfuck because even though he agrees to being casual, like, again, she's not a stupid woman. It's very obvious. Now, he does ask her at certain points, what are we doing here? And here's the other thing that is annoying about her. She'll use physicality to just gloss over it. He'll be like, what's going on? I want an answer. I need to know if we're going to continue. And instead of actually having the conversation, she just starts like kissing him and trying to have sex with him. And that's how she placates the whole thing, which I think is very manipulative, to be honest.
But if you're going to get manipulated, that's the way to do it.
Well, I mean,
in my opinion.
True. There is a very interesting part, though, like at the end of the fight that they had when he punched the guy or whatever, which that guy deserved to be punched, I have to say. But
the most arch bar approach I've ever seen in movie history, where he's like, could not be doucher. That guy did a great job with a very thin part, right? He just like coming hard.
He did. And it's funny because I've had similar situations happen. You would think like, oh, that's not realistic. No, I actually it was a situationship, the one that I dated for like the whole summer, a couple summers ago. And we were out for my birthday at, it was the place Carney's in Cape May, Cape May is so fancy and nice except for Carney's. It's this like divey, whatever. And it's where all the D-bags hang out. But, they had a DJ. It was my birthday. It was like, okay, we'll get a little janky for my birthday. But I was clearly with him. We were dancing together. And these guys came up and looked at him and were like, you're with her? And he was like, yeah. And they were like, what? And they're like, are you engaged? And we're like, no. Why would you ask that? That's so weird. And we just kind of had to get away from them, but they were very aggressive.
Yeah.
And so that type of thing does happen. But anyway, so when they're kind of like making up and he says, look, I just want to know that you're not going to wake up one day and feel differently. And she says, I can't give you that. Nobody can. And it really is true.
That's my favorite line in the whole movie.
Yeah, it's really true. And it happened for me. My high school and college relationships were a lot different because I would be all excited and all into somebody. And then I would wake up one day and be like, I'm not really into them anymore. And I don't know what exactly changed, but maybe at that point I was more avoidant. But
Should I call you a skank now?
yeah,
In order
you can
to...
call me a skank. Fine. It's fine. But it's really true. My boyfriend and I always say, like, you consciously choose to be with each other every day. Like, sometimes you're feeling it. There are some days where you're not feeling each other,
Yeah.
or you're mad at each other. But you don't just walk away at that point. You choose every day. This is the person I'm committed to. This is the person I'm going to be with. And she clearly cannot do that, but she is leading him on so much, and she's just talking her way out of it. And the thing is, they're both cowards in their own ways, right? They're both unwilling to address the things that they really need to address. Even that first time that they were out at the karaoke thing, right? She goes on this whole rant about, I don't want to be attached. I don't want to be anyone's girlfriend. And of course, the friends are you a lesbian? You know, because he's very immature in that way, right? But she's saying, like, why attach yourself to someone, blah, blah, blah. And then proceeds to be like, oh, do you like me? And be flirty. And then the next time they're at work, she kisses him. She kisses him in the copy room. So she is sending mixed signals all over the place. And I've been down this road because I've had so many people do that to me. And it gives you this false hope. And it's, again, what's her motivation? Does she just want validation? Because why is she dallying with him? If she's like, I love being by myself, she says it, I love being by myself, I love being independent. Why is she latching on to him? I'm pretty sure she knows it's not really ever going to go anywhere serious. But he convinces himself, especially when she's like telling the stories of previous relationships. And she says, oh, I've never told these things to anyone before. Or he gets the sense that she's never told them. And he's like, well, I guess I'm not just anyone. So she's giving him this idea that he's different from everybody else, which is giving him hope that, well, if I'm different from everybody else, maybe I'm the one person that she will say she can commit to. I think that is very relatable, and I think that happens so much.
I don't know if I can vilify her. I think I have been the quote-unquote victim in the same way that Tom has been, where somebody was not ready for it, but is still willing to give you time because it's like, well, this could be a stepping stone to my next thing, I guess, is how Summer's viewing it. I don't know that that's necessarily evil or wrong. I think she's just sort of being like, I'll keep you at arm's length. He says he's okay with it. She knows it's probably not, I would guess. But if he's saying it, is that really her fault? If he's saying I'm okay with it, I don't know.
Well, the girl he goes on the blind date with, which that scene's hilarious, right? Yeah. And she even says, she's like, okay, she never like harmed you and he's like, no, like, and she's like, and she told you up front that she didn't want a boyfriend. And he was like, yeah, and she just like looks at him and then he goes off the rails. But none of those things I think are evil. It's the one thing that really makes me dislike her is when she is at the wedding with him. Yeah. And she's dancing and let's face it, she is flirting. She is leading him on. She knows she's in a serious relationship. They're clearly catching up. He's clearly asking her, how have you been? What's new? She says nothing about the serious relationship.
You're correct.
Because she wants him to be, and she leads him on. And this is where I could just strangle her. She says, oh, I'm having a party. Would you like to come? She knows that he's going to think that's something. Yeah. And then he sees her at the party and she doesn't introduce him to her fiance, doesn't mention anything about him. In my favorite scene of all time, he sees her showing off her ring and that's how he finds out that she's engaged. She knows darn well that he's going to think that there's a chance. And I think part of her was getting some sort of satisfaction of being like, well, he still likes me.
I'm not going to say that she's completely innocent. I just don't know that she's a villain, right? There's somewhere in between. And I think the timing of these events matters. So in the early stages, when she doesn't fully know him and she's trying to get to know him, you can kind of forgive her for thinking, oh, he looks like Joseph Gordon-Levitt. He's probably got a dating history. He's probably okay with a situationship or whatever they would have called it back then, being casual. But then after they've already had the relationship is broken up, up. She goes on and gets engaged very quickly. She now is culpable when they meet up for the wedding and they're dancing and she's being flirty. Right now, she should know better because she's had a relationship with him. The reason it ended was because he was too romantic and she was too aromantic.
Right.
If that's a word. And so now I think, yeah, she's having her version of a bachelorette party, which is like, I'm going to do my last big flirtation to show that I've still got it before I give up my freedom for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I definitely think that she bears a different responsibility in the end of the movie than she does at the beginning, because she now has the knowledge that, okay, he was fooling himself, and she, who has more experience, knows better that he can't handle what he says he can handle. For example, when he's asking her about her exes and she's describing them and she's watching him squirm, she is getting data that indicates that he is not comfortable in a way that he says he is. And another example is when the friend comes over and is like, doesn't realize that Summer's in the apartment and is saying, dude, you've been stalking her for months. And she's making jokes about, oh, you were stalking me?
Yeah.
Throughout the relationship, she's building up that data. So now she should know better. So I do agree with you that she was not innocent. She's not a perfect person by any means, but I do think that Tom is also kind of questionable in a lot of ways, where he is fooling himself. He's not dealing with himself as a real person. He's building up imaginary scenes in his head and hoping that those come true instead of dealing with reality.
He's way too dramatic because he literally says, I can never be happy again in my life with anyone except Summer.
Right. This is a guy who breaks plates.
Right.
Because he's sad. So what I mean by that, in case anyone hasn't seen the movie, is that in the first scene, the 10-year-old sister is called over to help triage his suffering. He's literally standing there in the kitchen just smashing one plate after another. And it's like, again, Tom is so self-absorbed the entire movie. Yeah, I think it's played for laughs, but he's damaging his own stuff that is irreparable, as a way of processing his grief. And he does, through the whole movie, he never asks his friends how they are. He never thanks his boss for being the most understanding boss in the world, who is like putting up with his bullshit at work and failing and saying like, oh, you're miserable. Okay, we can move you from writing happy greeting cards to writing funeral greeting cards.
Right.
Great boss. Great example of repurposing your staff and knowing who they are. I think we should all aspire to have a boss like that someday, or to be that boss. Tom is just really self-absorbed the entire movie and is not giving a shit what happens to anybody else, Summer or his friends or his boss or really anyone.
Now that we're talking about career stuff, in the beginning, I think he is very emotionally stunted. He's immature and he doesn't know what he wants and he doesn't know how to be happy alone. One aspect I do like is that he kind of rediscovers his passion for architecture and realizes that he kind of does with his job what Summer did with him, is like, oh, wow, I realize that this situation I've been in and it's just been okay, but it's not like the thing for me. It's time to move on from it. And I need to like worry about myself. I need to pour into myself and my own needs and my career and nourish that part of his personality, because he's not very driven. He's kind of just, and I think a lot of people in their early 20s are doing that, right? They're just working at jobs. It's not their passion, but they need to pay their rent. So they're like, meh.
Is that just in your 20s? I feel like that's a lot of people, period, right? You discover that jobs don't always have to be passionate, right? Who's going to be passionate about writing greeting cards?
Yeah, but I like that he funnels that energy that he was putting all into Summer and pours it into himself and his career and doing what he loves and making himself a better person. And it's just this turning point for him. It
was like the easiest career transition I've ever seen, right? He just goes from having no experience in architecture whatsoever. I don't know does he have a degree in architecture? Like,
he went to school for it and everything.
I didn't remember that part.
He's always sketching and everything, but he's just being lazy, I think, about actually pulling the trigger and doing
because he's exceptional at greeting card writing. Everybody likes being exceptional at something. And they kind of show, in comparison to like the lady who's proposing, let's just have my cat on a card.
Right.
He can just nail the line for every card first try.
Yeah.
It's like, who doesn't want that validation?
Yeah, I love that outburst where he's like, if Pickles goes for that, that's a dead cat right there. The one scene also that I think was really profound and really great is, when they're on the bench at the end after she's married and he sees her. He has put into words what we were all thinking. At least, like, that's everyone's first reaction. My students, they're like screaming when they see that she's showing off an engagement ring. They're like, what?
Yeah.
And it's funny because they're in high school, so they're in that phase of like, you find the person and that's the love of your life and you get married and what are you doing, you know? And he says, you didn't want to be anyone's girlfriend and now you're somebody's wife. I don't think I will ever understand that. That's all she ranted about, is how she didn't want to be attached to someone, and then poof. So he's like, what is that all about? I don't get it. Could you like explain this to me? Because it's obviously driving him crazy, and it's driving us crazy as the viewers. Like, what the hell? This girl has been saying the complete opposite the entire time. And she says, I just woke up one day and I knew. And he's like, yeah, what did you know? And then she says, this is the most devastating line, I think, of the whole movie. What I was never sure of with you.
Right.
Ooh, and you can see, and he does a great job. Like, you can see that, like, shoots him like an arrow, because that's hard to hear. And it's hard if you've ever been in that situation of you were with someone for a long time and never went anywhere. You break up and then they're like married. It happens quite often. You just feel for him. But she says, you were right about all that love stuff. It just wasn't me that you were right about. I believe in, you're right. Like, there is fate. You know, if I had gone a different place, if I wasn't reading that book or whatever, I wouldn't be married right now to this guy. It was really meant to be. And, you know, they wish each other the best. And then, of course, he meets Autumn at the end. And it's funny because she says, wait, haven't I seen you at Angela's Plaza or whatever? And he's like, I don't think I've seen you. And she's like, well, you must not have been looking. And it also shows you he was so obsessed with Summer, he didn't like notice this other hottie like coming in, you know?
Yeah.
Was completely blinded to everything else. Wasn't even paying attention to his surroundings because he was just so enamored with her.
Did he love Summer that much, or was he just obsessed with the idea of loving Summer?
Oh, I think
And
the
so,
latter.
yeah,
Absolutely.
That's part of his self-absorption, is that thing that I've heard other people say, they broke up with me, what's wrong with them? I think the biggest problem in so many people's romantic relationships is self-knowledge and knowledge of another person.
Yeah.
Right? It's a lack of that. And so he does not realize that their relationship does not work because he's so obsessed with that she has to love me, because who wouldn't?
Right.
In so many words, right? I'm generalizing, I'm summarizing.
Right.
But like summarizing.
Oh.
So, yeah, I think that line, you're right about, I just wasn't ready with you, but I was ready for somebody else. He just cannot conceive of the fact that why couldn't she love me?
Yeah.
And I think that is just so delusional. There's a million people in the world that you can fall in love with under the right circumstances. And that's what I think drives me a little crazy about this movie, is its belief in fate. If I was in a different bookstore and, you know, blah, 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 blah.
I don't know, because I do kind of believe in that
Right,
stuff.
I know, but it's silly, and you should all outgrow it. There's no such thing as fate. You can fall in love with anybody under the right circumstances. It's been proven. If you have two people who are in a crisis together, or they're trauma bonded at work, that could all turn into a relationship. And the thing that you don't think about when you're watching this movie is like, yes, Summer says all these profound things at the end of the movie about it just wasn't right with you. What they don't show is 10 years later when she's divorced from her husband because they weren't good parents together, or he cheated on her, or whatever. And then where's your fate now? And it's like, well, fate wanted us to get divorced and go through suffering. Who's the real cynic now, Amanda?
Oh, sheesh. Well, I think it really does give a good view of some of these beliefs that we've absorbed from various, it's almost like a fourth wall situation, or like a meta situation, because it's like a movie about how beliefs are shaped from movies, but like it's a movie that has also gotten into our, you know, people
It's
who pay
shaped the
attention.
view.
Yes. I just think it's really cool. And I don't know, I always find some sort of nuance every single time that I watch it, even though I've seen it so many times. And I think it's just really well done. It's also a really good film. And my favorite movies are ones where it's a love story, but it has to be unconventional. I don't like the typical love stories, the boy meets girl, or, you know, maybe there's some friction at first and then they fall in love and all these hilarious things happen or whatever. I like that it's like messy. It's just a different story.
Yeah.
Other than the millions of repeat, same old hackneyed storylines that you see in romantic movies. I really like that it's different. Love the production design, love the whole feel of the movie, love the music. And it's one of those movies, I think, you know, 50 years from now or whatever, it will really also show that hipster culture with the music and the wardrobe choices and things. It really encapsulates that time period of when people were listening to Regina Spektor and
Yeah.
wearing their weird clothes and...
Well, I still have a bunch of notes. I don't know if you do.
Oh, you do?
I do. I know we've been talking for a while, and I think we probably should wrap up this version, but I don't know if we want to do a part 2 or just not talk about my notes. Whatever, it's fine. We can do
Well,
that.
I want to know about your notes, so I'm fine with doing a part 2 if you would like.
It might be a short part 2. We're at time right now, so we should probably wrap this one up. So overall, really good movie. Maybe hasn't aged as well as we might hope, but I don't know that it'll ever be a timeless classic, but I do think it's a pretty solid entry for the time period. Really solid performances from both the leads. Maybe they're not the most fleshed out, dynamic supporting characters, but they're definitely some interesting ones. The guy that was it Clark Gregg, I think, plays the boss.
Yeah.
I don't know if I have his name right, but he's best known for being in Marvel movies as Agent so-and-so, whose name I can't remember. I think there is a pretty good movie overall, so I'm glad we watched it.
Yeah. And thank you, everyone, for listening and for supporting us. If you like our content, like it, share it, comment, all of those good things. We're just starting out. We're little babies. We're new to the whole podcasting thing. And it makes a big difference when you like our content and share it. So please keep doing that. And thank you to everyone who's done that so far.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, everybody.